Hey friends, I I had just kind of an interesting sensation this morning, and it sort of it just kind of reminded me, I guess, of how looking at this idea of the distinction between compulsive action and action that we choose, which of course, as Sadhguru describes, is the difference between action that compounds karma. Action that's compulsive is continually compounding karma, whereas action that is freely chosen is actually how we unravel. It's how we free ourselves. And it's kind of amazing there are kind of these, how fine the gradations can become as far as, is it compulsive action that's completely compulsive? Is it compulsive action that's just a little bit compulsive? That's more chosen, but it's kind of laced with something compulsive? Because there's a distinction there. And it's not an insignificant one. It's a significant distinction. I think that it's actually healthy, at least certainly for me, not to be puritanical about how I evaluate this, because the fact is free action is blended with compulsive action all the time. And on some level, we're talking about, this takes me back to like the kind of thinking about something like playing piano is such a great example to me of a practice where we are deliberately automating behavior. To memorize a classical piece is to program ourselves to be able to do a great number of physical and emotional things in quick succession, and all amount to reproducing a work of Beethoven. Not reproducing, we're kind of creating it anew each time, but we're following a template and we're programming ourselves to be able to do that. Well, I choose to take that action every day. I choose to sit down and do that every day. But what I'm choosing to do is program behavior, program something that I can then rely on and not have to think about it. I have to be able to go in and make behavior that is initially completely kind of, I don't know if the right word is free, but it's behavior that's completely new. It's novel to me when I begin a new piece. And I'm making it familiar. And then, of course, the whole thing about mindful practice is not practicing compulsively. In other words, not letting my previous habits of how I approach things, or how I use my hands, or how I relate to the music in terms of the vibration and the resonance and the tone, not to fall into habitual patterns of how I do that, but to remain always available and fresh, always available to and present. My hands feel the keys. My ears hear what's happening. there's a level of consciousness there, but there's also an element of automating that. So this is just I guess it's kind of a thought experiment that I run occasionally in terms of looking at how that all actually works. But one of the things what was showing up this morning, is actually the first thing I started to talk about before I got off on my piano tangent, which seems to happen to me these days, was that I was sitting in meditation and I was thinking about some things I have to do today, some conversations I need to have. Things are kind of ramping up on the MacGyver front again because the album's coming down the pike. And I noticed myself drifting towards, I noticed the kind of like the seductive sound of distraction, getting pulled towards, oh, I want to go call so-and-so, I should have a conversation about X, I want to get clarity, I want to get settled on blah, blah, blah. And I experienced it as a physical holding on in my lower mid abdomen. It was like I felt my body holding onto something. And I think actually more properly, to describe this more properly, would be to say that I recognized as I let it go, as I let go of the kind of fixations that I was on about whatever I was thinking about that I wanted to get to, that was kind of taking me away from just the centeredness of meditation. When I started to let that go, it's like I felt this part of my body let go. I was like, oh. It's like I didn't even notice I was holding on there until I genuinely decided, okay, these thoughts are not for now. This is meditation. These thoughts are for later. Let them go. And then all of a sudden I was like, whoa. My body had to let that go. It wasn't just my mind doing that. It was my body holding on to something. And it was a really powerful experience. And it's something, it's not, I wouldn't say it was a new experience, because I've had the experience a number of times, many, many times, that our thoughts are really coming from our body, right? Our thoughts and our body are one thing. The body is the mind. There's no mind-body split and no mind-body connection, for that matter. It's one thing. And but that doesn't mean that it's not still sort of like revelatory to discover where in my body I'm holding on. There's this interesting, it's almost like a mapping process that's going on right now for me, where I feel, I was also kind of on about something else in my mind this morning, kind of feeling some frustration around something, and needing to let that go. And it's almost like I feel these parts of my body holding on. And, it's just remarkable to me to continue to digest and recognize how much of our physical, tangible, external, kind of concretely verifiable life, our physical body and our environment, are being created by these internal experiences, by our internal psychic momentum or psychic imprint. It's truly like we're imprinting this on the world, and so I let go of something in my mind, and this morning I was really conscious, like, stuff's not that it's not important, but I'm here in meditation to center myself in a dimension of myself and a dimension of existence that is so vastly more significant and more enduring than these passing thoughts, right? No matter how urgent these concerns are, this dimension that I'm here, that this practice is all about, is a whole, it's like, to compare them is hilarious, because one is like the meaning of the cosmos and reality, and one is like an item on a to-do list. It's like, it could not be more different in scale. But as I bring myself, but the funny thing is, that doesn't necessarily mean that my mind will go to the more significant one. It's still a practice to let go, to recognize that, and to let go of the thing that is kind of grabbing my attention right now. And it's just amazing to me how that action, that gesture of putting that down and coming to the center, results in physical experiences. Like, my body does stuff, literally, like, my stomach will turn, or my muscles will all relax, or something will change in my reality. A person will walk up to me. It's really kind of amazing when we let in the reality that we're living in this holodeck, to use a Star Trek metaphor. I think that's my first Star Trek metaphor. But the holodeck is the open room where they can, like, create any virtual reality, and then you can, like, do training or whatever in there. It's a very cool room. It's where we live. We don't get to do it at the push of a button. We have to do it through the kinds of action we take and processing our karma, but it's basically the same thing. And just every time I have even a kind of micro experience of that, it's really, it's powerful. And it kind of reminds me, it also affirms the choice to sit, and it affirms the choice to distinguish between compulsion and choice, and allow myself to. There's always a gentleness, and there's always a freedom in choice. Those are characteristics that are very consistent. There's a gentleness. I'm not fighting for my choice. Usually, I'm recognizing I'm recognizing what's greater and what's lesser, and where my heart really is. So that's what I got this morning. I have a still sleeping household. Wonderful Sunday morning. Love you all. Appreciate you. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.